This video, we'll be going over 10 major changes they made in the newest version of Resolve 15.2. Okay, the first change they made in Resolve 15.2 is the highlighting of what module you're currently in as part of the interface. With the previous versions of Resolve 15, you really couldn't tell which one had the focus, which part. Say like over here where you have the inspector, or the main viewer, or your media pool, or the timeline. But now if you click on in any one of these different areas, you'll see it's highlighted in red. So if I come up here to media pool, see that's now highlighted in red. If I come to the viewer, that section's highlighted. Come down to the timeline, you can see that that's highlighted. So it's not a huge change, but it's a nice tweak to the interface, again, just so you know which part of it has the activity in being used at the moment. So that is the first change. The second change they made in 15.2 is they changed the interface, totally changed it for the keyboard mapping. So this is what it looked like in 15.12. It's kind of how it looked like since the beginning of Resolve 15. And you come under keyboard mapping, which is under user, under the settings for Resolve, and you can go into each one of these different categories and different commands and set up what shortcut you wanted for it. That was the old interface look. So now you go basically to the same spot. You go under Davinci Resolve and Preferences. It's no longer there if you look. It's under User. You no longer see it there. Because you come up here, it's actually on its own menu, submenu here, Keyboard Customization. And then it actually shows you the keyboard and which active keys and the different commands available. And this is also customizable to the different tabs. So different shortcuts will have different meaning depending upon which tab you have them under. So you can really fully customize it to the way you like to work. So again, that's the second change they made to Resolve 15.2. The third change they made in Resolve 15.2 is that to the inspector, it used to be that if you had none of your tracks selected, that nothing would show up under the inspector. Even if you had it selected up here, it wouldn't actually know which track you're referring to. But now by default, whatever track is under the playhead will be what the inspector is pointing to without having to select them. So right now this track is selected, but if I move it over here, now if I change something like the zoom, it'll automatically be on the highest track. And so if I move back, so if you look right now, on the previous track, it's the zoom of 1. Then if I move up to this track without even selecting it, you can see that the changes I made to it are reflected here under the inspector. So that's nice. And then if you do want to then refer back to the lower track, you just click on it and select it, and then it'll point to the selected one. But as soon as you deselect it and have nothing selected, it'll always point to the topmost track in your timeline. So as the third major change to the Resolve 15.2. Okay, the fourth change they made to Resolve 15.2 is the ability to edit your ease in and ease out settings by right-clicking for keyframes. You do it both from the inspector and directly from the timeline. So you see here I have a keyframe selected here, and I have it on this track. So then I can toggle it down and I can scrub forward into the video and create another keyframe. And then I can either right click in the timeline on it and change either to linear or ease in, or I can right click it on here in the inspector and change it back to linear, or right click and have it ease in. You also have the handle here, so you could change and tweak it to the way you want. So that's another nice handy feature to be able to affect how the changes you make under the inspector, how the keyframes are handled. So you can go from linear to a more gradual increase or decrease of the effect you're trying to apply to the clip. So that's the fourth major change in Resolve 15.2. Okay, the next and fifth big change they made in Resolve 15.2 is the automatically enable dynamic zoom when you choose that from within the on-screen menu, on-screen display here. So you've come to dynamic zoom, And as soon as you edit anything, see right now it's off. If you change anything within the dynamic zoom parameters, it'll automatically enable it. So you don't have to come over here and manually enable it. You might forget that when you're trying to tweak these settings and forget that you don't have the dynamic zoom selected. So it will automatically select it for you as soon as you change any of these points within the dynamic zoom interface here on the overlay display here. So that's the 5th change in the newest version of Resolve. Okay, the next major feature they changed in Resolve 50.2 is they added a blanking fill ResolveFx filter. So basically it's used when you shoot something vertically and you want to fill the edges. You don't want to have it be that dimensions generally shot it in. You see this a lot in videos on YouTube where they film it vertically and you could then, they'll have something on the side here, and I'll demonstrate now. So you just bring that over, drag it over to the clip, and then it fills in the sides. Then when you play it through, you can see that it then fills in the edges so that it's not just black on either side. So that's the 6th new thing they've added to Resolve 15.2. The 7th big change they made was to add a new FX effect called Stereo Fixer. So you can drag it over to your audio within the Fairlight tab, and brings up this dialog box where it allows you to do various different presets here to fix problems with your stereo recording. So you can reverse the stereo so that the left is the right and the right's the left, and you can make it mono and left only, right only, and various tweaks to the left and right channel. But that's something, the 7th new thing that they added to Resolve in this newest version. The 8th major change they made to Resolve 15.2, again under the Fairlight tab, is they added a multiband compressor. So if you add that to one of your audio channels here, it pops up, and one thing it adds is a spectral analyzer. So when you're playing through, you could actually see the waveform and kind of what the different bands are doing, and you can adjust 4 different bands and set all the different values for it to tweak it to what you need it to be. So that was a nice addition. The 9th change they made in the newest version of Resolve 15.2 is the ability to add a Fairlight FX, any of these effects, the audio effects, onto multiple clips at the same time. So here we could select all these clips here, and then we could say add a delay. And now if you look at each of the clips, close this down, you can see that that FX has been added to each one of these clips. Okay, if then you want to tweak any one of the individual clips, just deselect them all and select the clip you want and come up into the inspector, and you come down to delay and you can change any of the parameters here. And also if you say you added it to that clip by mistake within the inspector, you could also hit delete and we'll just delete it off of that clip. And if we look at the other clips, the effect is still applied to those ones. So that's a nice new change in Resolve 15.2. And finally, the 10th change they made in Resolve 15.2, again, the audio section, is the ability that if you add a audio transition, say a crossfade, from the Edit tab, if you come over to Fairlight, you can still edit, expand that, and move that around and change it any way you want within the Fairlight tab, and don't have to switch back to the Edit tab to mess with your transitions, your audio transitions. So those are the 10 major changes in Resolve 15.2. There's quite a few other changes, but these are the 10 that I wanted to go over and kind of demonstrate quickly and show how they work. So hopefully you found this video useful, and I thank you for watching. If you found this video useful, please consider giving it a like and consider subscribing to my channel.